Welcome! Thanks so much for joining the Texas Conference Virtual Officers Training event. We appreciate our local church volunteers and want to provide best practices to help them succeed in their leadership positions. Our presenter for this session is Kenn Dixon, Vice President for Communication and Public Relations for Texas Conference. We appreciate him taking this time to share about communication and public relations for the local church with us today. A few housekeeping items before we begin. The presentation is about 40 minutes and, as you may have noticed, is being recorded. There will be time for questions at the end of the presentation. You can add your questions to the chat or share them during the Q&A when cameras and mics are open. This session ends at 6:30 p.m. If time does not permit to answer all the questions, a frequently asked question page will be created and shared afterward. So now let's connect and communicate. Kenn, the time is yours.
Hello, everyone. Hello. Welcome to our part two. If you were in part one, this is part two of our strategic partnership communication training. This one is entitled Empowering Strategic Communication Within the Local Church. And we're going to be talking about some techniques, some process in which we process communication. Want to let you know that this session is recorded, so if you have to jump off or if you have someone that on your team that is not able to attend, we are recording all of these sessions, and so wanted to make you known for that. And if you have not seen this yet or have not downloaded our app as of yet, we do have a Texas Conference mobile app that can be found in the Google Play Store as well as in the Apple Store. It is a great tool in which you can find out news and things that are happening within the Texas Conference, as well as if you do have the app, you probably got a notification this morning this afternoon stating that we had some training today. And so that's one of the things that it does. Among other things of, streaming, we can stream programming through that, but we can also push notifications and have some great content in there. Some podcasting is in there, some videos, some sessions that if you want to check it out, you can. And then we also have our communication workshops that are going around the Texas Conference. These workshops are designed to help you go a little bit deeper into public relations, audio worships, streaming best practices, strategic communication for the local church, and more. Our next session is going to be in San Marcos on June 15th. And then we'll be in Houston on August the 17th, and then September we'll be in the Valley, September 28th. And all of these sessions are free. You do have to register because they do offer a potluck. So they want to make sure that you have a head count also. And then we have our Connectopia, our Communication and Innovation Summit, which is happening in 2025. This session is going to be a lot of hands-on information. It's going to be some video editing, some basic video editing, some color correction, some things like that. It'll also include some graphic designing, photography, audio podcasting, some things that we think that would be really helpful for the local church. We're going to do a lot of some of those hands-on things as well. All righty, so now today we're going to be talking about that strategic partnership and the trusted relationship. Again, we're going to be jumping into the empowering the strategic communication within the local church. I am your presenter. I'm Kenn Dixon. Serve as the Vice President for Communication Public Relations for the Texas Conference. Excited to present to you on a topic that I love so much, and that is communication, public relations. And I hope that you will get something out of this. This is my wonderful team that I have a great opportunity to work with. They are incredible, very talented, and they are here to serve you at the local church level. All right, so today we're going to be talking about RPI. And you're probably saying, what on earth is RPI? Well, we want to start talking about public relations at the local church being strategic at a level in which we can truly understand the process so that we can get the results that we want. But before we jump into that, let's have a word of prayer. Father in heaven, Lord, grateful once again for these communicators at the local church who sacrifice their time, to work to further the gospel and to also empower members and church leadership to share the things that you would have for them to do. Lord, now as we spend this little time together, we ask that you would just guide and direct us. We pray these things in your name. Amen. All right, so I'm using this acronym, and if you were in our last workshop, I talked a little bit about this acronym, and it was called, research, planning, implementation, and evaluation. And within public relations, we call this RPI. And particularly within the accreditation and public relations, we really talk about this process. And this is an amazing process because I can tell you that as you start thinking about the local church or the local church level, you start thinking about, how can I better serve the local church when it comes to communication and public relations? Well, here's one way that I feel in my 20 plus years of communication and in ministry that is really just catapulted, my whole thinking about the local church as well as communication. And it is this process called RPI. But one thing I want to get into, kind of put right up front is that public relations and marketing are not the same thing. Okay, they're not the same thing. And I want to give you some definitions. So the first definition is marketing. So you could be able to see the difference here. See, marketing is the management function that identifies human needs and wants, offers products and services to satisfy those demands, and causes transactions that deliver products and services to users in exchange for something of value to the provider. Now, however, public relations is different. Public relations is the management function that establishes and maintains mutual beneficial relationships between an organization and the publics in whom its success or failure depends. Now, obviously the first one, when we talk about marketing, we're talking about transactional. It's very transactional. It's, we have this, you provide money for this, and you get this. In public relations, it's very relationship. It's relational. Okay, it's about connecting with people, getting them to trust you. It's persuasion. It is being transparent. It's being to live by values, live with an ethical code. So it is different. It is different. Now, I will say that within the church, these things are not. When I mean these things that I'm talking about, they're, in order to understand them in a way that is meaningful for the local church, it has to be adopted that is different than the way we have done things in the past. It is truly different. It is no longer just simply mailing something out. It is no longer simply posting something on social media with the hopes and prayers that someone will join. It is a lot deeper than that. It is going and changing the mindset of the local communication leader to understand the process in which how we go about resolving problems and developing a strategic mindset. Okay. And so these are the things that we talked about before: research, planning, implementation, and evaluation. We're talking about these things that are meaningful, these things that are connected. And we're going to look at these things. Now, I want to take a kind of a 30,000 foot view from this and let you know what this looks like and what this kind of feels like. So first of all, there is a problem that happens within the church. And that problem can be, as I mentioned in the last session, it could be the pastor wants to have more attendance in Sabbath school. The Pathfinder leader wants to have more. He wants to have 10 non-Adventist kids join their Pathfinder group. So there is a problem, and that problem has to be evaluated in a certain way. So you have to analyze what that problem is. And some of you may have heard this before. It's kind of a SWOT analysis. You want to define the problem or the opportunity. Now, there are the SWOT analysis, the S, WOT, strength, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. So the strengths and weaknesses are normally internal. So in other words, it's within the organization. What are the strengths and the weaknesses? Okay. What are the strengths and weaknesses? And then the threats and opportunities are normally external. What are the threats and opportunities that exist outside? So the strength and weaknesses, this is one way in which you can determine. Let's take the pastor wants more people to attend Sabbath school. Okay. So you analyze what the problem is. You analyze what is there. Okay. So the strength is that Sabbath school is engaging. It gives opportunity for people to talk, to connect with one another, to share their thoughts and feelings. That's a strength. Okay. The weakness is that there's not very many people there. So the great things that are happening in Sabbath school cannot be experienced because people are not there. The threat to that is, or the opportunity is that there is room to grow. What are the opportunities outside? Maybe we can have people outside of the church join Sabbath school we just call it a Bible study instead of calling it Sabbath school. The threat is that there will be people in the church who say, no, you can't change the name of it, because if you change the name of it, then that changes something else to it. So it can be internal sometimes, and it can be external. So you use some kind of analysis tool to analyze what the problem is. And it could be SWOT analysis. It could be something else, whatever, analyzing what the problem is. What is the problem, or what is the opportunity that exists? Now, when we're talking about the process, the research, this is very key, because there's different kind of research. There's the formal, the informal, the primary, secondary, qualitative, and quantitative. Okay, so I'm not gonna necessarily bore you with this because I really want to make this more practical. But when we're talking about research, we're talking about what data do we have right now? Okay, what do we have right now to help fix the Sabbath school problem? So there's probably data out there from Sabbath school superintendents in the past, from the General Conference of Sabbath School, the NAD Sabbath School. There's, some of the things. Okay, so there is then there's the formal surveying the members. How do you feel about Sabbath school? Do you think Sabbath school is this? You're asking questions. And then there's the informal, where you kind of sit back and for a number of weeks and just look at Sabbath school, because coming at it, remember, you're the communicator. So you observe, you sit back and you watch Sabbath school and you take notes, you analyze. If we want to grow Sabbath school, what are some of the impediments? What are some of the advantages? Okay. The primary is that you're investigating the data that you do yourself. That's a primary. Secondary is stuff that already exists. So you gather that information. And then there's the quantitative and the qualitative. In other words, the qualitative deals with the impressions and the feelings of the topics. And then the quantitative is the numeric. In other words, we surveyed, the Sabbath school, and 50% of the people in the Sabbath school realized that Sabbath school, there's no breakfast. And so that's why they don't come. Or we surveyed the people in the church, and they said they don't come to Sabbath school because there's no breakfast. They don't come to Sabbath school because brother so-and-so and sister so-and-so always fight. So 30% of the people say that they don't come to Sabbath school because there's always a fight in Sabbath school or something like that. So that's that quantitative, that data, the numbers side of it. And the other side is kind of like that impressions, or the feelings, or the how it looks or feels to individuals. And so that's the research. So you gather that information and you're like, okay, how can I assist Sabbath school? But you need to know what to do before you can. And so then it moves you kind of into this analyzing the situation. Who do we want to reach? Okay. What do we want people to do? What message to communicate to each public that will increase knowledge, change opinions, encourage desired behavior? I just said a lot right there. Okay. Why is that important? Because what do who do you want to reach? So you have to really ask yourself, who do you want to reach? What is it that who are you trying to reach? Because if you don't reach the right people, then you cannot, give them the right message. In other words, so you have to reach the right people. So who do you want to reach? What do you want people to do? Okay, so what do you want people to do? To answer that, you may say, come to Sabbath school. Okay, all right. You want them to come to Sabbath school, all right? So you have to know who you want to reach, what do you want them to do, and what message to communicate to each public that will increase knowledge. We now have breakfast at Sabbath school, before Sabbath school. Okay, let me back up. Let's say that in the survey that you did for the church, people say, I can't come because it's too early, and we always miss Sabbath school always miss breakfast, and my kids get irritable, so we want to get them breakfast. Breakfast is now at Sabbath school. Okay, so you increase their knowledge. They now have knowledge that there's Sabbath school. Okay, change your opinion. Well, I guess I can come now because there's breakfast. The opinion has been changed. Okay, and the desired behavior is that they actually show up. That's analyzing the situation and the problem. Okay, so what do you want? Who do you want to reach? And if, let's say it's children with Pathfinder age group, the Pathfinder director you're the communicator. You're now analyzing it for the Pathfinder director. He wants 10 more people. Okay, who you want to reach? Obviously, you need Pathfinder age group kids. Okay, what do you want people to do? We want them to join Pathfinders. Okay, you need a message. What is the message of communication you want each one to reach? Increase their knowledge. Okay, they don't know what Pathfinder is. Why would I join? I don't want to join Pathfinders. I don't know anything about Pathfinders. I don't know what a Pathfinder is. It's something like Boy Scouts. Oh, I know what Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts are. Okay, increasing their knowledge. Okay, changing their opinion. Well, a Pathfinder, isn't that a vehicle? Said no, Pathfinder is this, that. Oh, so it's like a Christian version of Boys and Girls, Boys Club and Girls Club. Yeah, absolutely. And then you encourage that desired change in their behavior. So now, guess what? They come and they're part of it. So that is the process within this research in the public relations sphere of these things. Okay. And then the things we want to consider within this are simply this. Okay. Consideration. Know advantages and disadvantages. So in other words, what resources are available for gathering the information? What other parts of your organization or other organizations have already done the research, as I mentioned before, the secondary, and then what do you need to collect? Survey, telephone, mail-in, online, all of those things. And what questions do you need to ask? Okay, so these are the things that you need to consider. So I know you're probably saying to yourself, that's a lot of work for a local communication person to do, because, man, I don't know if I have time for all of this. Listen, it can be a lot of work, but the outcome is great, because when you put in the work, the outcome, you become this trusted counsel, because now you're sharing with your leadership on how things should be done from a communication standpoint, and then they trust you that you're going to get things done. Okay, you're going to get things done. Now, here's a summary of this, what it looks like. Okay, let me pop this up a little bit. Information gathering usually begins with an analysis of secondary sources. Secondary research may be all the time and money that you have. Okay, so we're talking about research here. Okay, let's consider, what do you need to find out, and how do you plan to use the research results? In other words, what are you going to do? In the beginning, you are doing formative research. This is providing background information on a current situation. You're guiding plans and signals needed for adjustments to the program and the implementation. Okay, so in other words, what you're doing is you're taking this and you're analyzing, what do I have right now? Okay, I've got a problem, and this is all the information that I have. People don't want to come for this. They don't want to come for that. They don't like this. They don't like Mary and John fighting every Sabbath school. Okay, so you pull that all together. You analyze that together. And then the next step, that P in that R pie, is now you start planning. Okay, planning is you set goals. You identify the publics who's involved in it, the objectives, strategies, and tactics. Okay, so the goals are long-term, broad, global, future planning state of being. In other words, we want to have a small group Bible study that starts out of a branch Sabbath school that eventually becomes a church. That's broad, futuristic, big out there. the group of people you're trying to reach or the publics that you're trying to reach. Who are you trying to reach? I want to make a young adult Bible study, whatever the case may be. Okay. The objective is you focus on, use terms, the goals that are sharp, that are SMART goals. Like they're very specific, they're measurable, they're achievable, they're realistic, and they're relevant. Okay. And the result outcome or oriented, and they're time sensitive. That's the SMART part of this. Okay. And then the strategies is providing the roadmap or the how are you going to get there. And then look what's at the end of this. It is the actual tactics or what you're actually doing. In other words, posting a video, creating a video, sending something out. It's at the end of it. What I have found is a lot of times we start with the end. We start with the end before we even know the how. So in other words, we post something to social media with the hopes and prayers that something would happen, but we didn't set in our minds what do we want to happen. And so we never accomplish what we want because we never set in our mind what we actually wanted. So looking at those SMART goals, and listen, I'm going to say this: if you have questions, if you have any insight or anything you want to share, please, you can put it in the question section, and we'll look at those and we'll address those. And I think if you actually have something that you would like to, like say you don't want to write it, but you have a question, I can actually turn your mic on, and you can actually raise your hand, and I will unmute you. So we're looking at, excuse me, we're looking at these objectives. Okay, so we're looking at objectives here. These are SMART objectives, as I mentioned before. So what opinion, attitude, or behavior you're trying to achieve by a specific group. Now, this is what's important. So you have to know, what do you want to do? As I mentioned before, what do you want to do? What do you want? I mean, if you know that a department within your church has a problem, and that problem could be that, and listen, it could be a bad problem or a good problem. You're probably saying, what's a bad problem? A good problem is that you've got way too many people in Sabbath school. Or you have, and so now you need to create a new Sabbath school. So you would go through the same process for for good problems and bad problems. Okay, so the specific attitude, behavior, or opinion you want to change from a specific group. How much change do you want to achieve from that group? Okay, and then when do you want to achieve it? Now, here's a little acronym that not acronym, but a kind of a little ditty that will help you get this a little bit and understand this a little bit more. So focus on a shorter term than goal with the SMART measurements. Okay, that's objectives. That's what objectives are. Output objectives, measuring of activities, is the monitoring of work, but not effectiveness. Did you hear that? So output of objectives, in other words, you output things, you post things, you do things, is not necessarily a good measurement for effectiveness. The process objective calls for you to inform or educate publics or groups. Outcome objectives changes the attitudes, the awareness, behavior, or support. So in other words, what am I saying? It is better to have outcome objectives than output objectives. So your outcome objectives is, we want to change the perception of what Sabbath school is all about. Okay, as a communicator, you're now helping that leader figure out changing the perspective of what Sabbath school is about. But first, as we did in the research, you had to know what the problem was. Why aren't people showing up for Sabbath school? And this could be for not just Sabbath school, it could be for any program. Okay, why are people not showing up? Or why don't people come to the evangelistic series? Why, what's the reason? Now, as I mentioned before, and I want to share this with you, in the research part of this, let me share my screen here. Okay, within the research process, which is the first step, this is where we as a conference communication department at the conference office can help you when it comes to audience identification, audience behavior within your community. So we can search for certain things. And as I shared with the last course, this is something that I just simply Googled. I simply Googled, not Google, but I simply used search these keywords, peace in this world. And in essence, when I did a search on this, I found out that more than let's see if I can pull it back up, if it will let me. Yep, there we go. 7,000 to 9,000 people search for peace in this world each month. Okay. And out of that, half and half is male and female. Okay. But then there are also these keywords right here that they actually are searching. This is what literally is what they're typing in to their search engine. And then when I come up to here, I can look at trending keywords. Okay. These are things that are trending that people are kind of looking at. And a lot of things about Lent, because obviously Lent was a time frame in which, we just kind of went through this Easter Lent period. But so these things have popped up. But then I can also go to related questions. Okay, what are some of the questions that people are typing in? What are the 5 positive quotes? What is the best inner peace quote? What is a powerful prayer for a family? All of these things can be turned into content that can be utilized, and you would get answers to some of these objectives that you want to create. So what am I saying? In the research part of what you're doing, as you reach out to the conference office and you say, hey, we're doing an evangelistic series, or we want to increase non-Adventists coming to our church, what are some of the things that some people are talking about within our area? And we can look that up and say, or if you have, it's easier if you have a kind of a phrase that you want to see if it gathers. Now, I'm gonna be honest with you. I have put in this program things like hope, peace, broad, because we're trying to reach people who are seeking something. Okay. So in the research, we're trying to find people that are seeking something. All right. So, but when I put something in there about the Antichrist, mark of the beast, there's a lot of stuff on there, but people aren't necessarily looking. The questions on there are not like, how can I find the Antichrist? No, it's stuff like, what is the Antichrist? Who is the Antichrist? And we now we start creating things that are like, oh, people want to know about it. But those are things that are, once you give them the answer, okay, thank you. But when you have someone that is struggling with inner peace, they need something more than who the beast power is. They need to know who Jesus is. And that's the difference, is that when we're talking about touching people, we have to start dating them before we ask them to marry them. Okay, because we come with our best foot forward and we throw all the Adventist ammunition at them. And what ends up happening is they get overwhelmed with it and they're like, this is too much. You guys are crazy. But when you say, hey, how do you find inner peace? How do you find peace? Well, you could find peace this way. Oh, yes, that helps. So back to this, my objectives. Okay, I'm trying to change attitudes, behaviors of a certain group. So my outcome objective should be, I want to change this person's attitude and perspective of what peace is all about. I don't want to do an output by saying, here's the mark of the beast. Oh, okay, thank you. You see the difference? It's like, one is I'm putting something out there and they're accepting it or not. And I can't measure it. I don't know if they accepted it or not. They said, okay, thank you. I don't know what that means. But an outcome objective is that, oh, that's how I can find inner peace. And then they send a message back saying, thank you. Because of what you shared, I was able to do X, Y, and Z. I've changed now an attitude, a behavior, or support. Okay? So that's the difference. And then this is our summary as we talk about the summary aspect, the SMART, say goals, objectives, publics, and strategies and tactics. Okay, so we've gotten all of the research for this, for whatever our problem is, and then we pulled it together. And now we look at how do we put this thing together? What is our planning process? You know, the P in RPI, the research, the P, the planning. Okay. We created our goals. We know what we want to do. Our objectives. How are we going to reach it? Who we're going to reach, our publics, our group. How is it going to happen? Our strategy, tactics, what tools are we going to use to accomplish that? And it's outcome, as I mentioned here, it's outcome based. Okay. Then after that, we got to put it in place. It makes no sense for us to create all of this and then we don't launch it. Okay. So now we execute our plan. Actions that you will take as part of your plan. Okay. So here now we have our messages, sending out messages to each communication channel. Now, let me just pause for a second. And I know, you know, if you're sending things, and I don't want to give too much away on this because I really want, if you're in the area for our Connectopia workshops, I want you to come and hear it in more detail. But if you're sending the same channel, same message out on all of your channels, you're not reaching the audience. In other words, that's not strategic. It's just easy for you. But strategic means that now I'm sending something on Instagram because I'm trying to reach this audience. I'm sending something on Facebook because I'm trying to reach this audience. I'm sending something by mail because this audience needs it. I'm putting up a billboard because this audience is going to need it. I'm sending out text messages because this internal audience needs it. I'm creating a landing page on my website because I know that there's certain people on my website that, you know, if they see this, they're gonna. The message is different on each channel. On an Instagram channel, it may be short and witty and really youthful. On a Facebook, it could be a little bit more this. On LinkedIn, it may be more professional and really targeting that. On YouTube, it may be a video that is short, you know, no more than 90 seconds or 2 minutes at the longest, you know, because you want to capture someone's attention. You're putting the call to action up front. So you have to use the channel that best serves the audience you're trying to reach. So not only that, but then you have to make timetables and budget. Okay, so how much are you going to allocate towards this? Listen, it is, as we mentioned before, we have to use all of the, you know, according to the church manual, according to what the communications job is to use all of the contemporary communication techniques. And these are contemporary communication techniques. In other words, we don't use old-fashioned things. Listen, I always wonder when churches don't move past certain things, is it because they are resistant to change or they just gotten so comfortable in an area that they don't want to change? It requires a little bit more work. Now, what I'm describing to you, it does require a little bit more work, but the payoff is great. And anything that is worth working for is and has a good payoff is worth doing. And then you monitor results. So you want to monitor to keep track of how the campaign is going. And everything that happens, it's really a campaign. It's really a campaign. Now, here's once we've done the research, the planning, we've implemented these things, okay? We've implemented these things, the messages, a timetable, a budget, and we're monitoring the results. Then, once the campaign is launched, we start what is called evaluation, which is the E in RPI. The evaluation. Did the plan work? Okay, so you can measure during and after. You have to measure after. It's that post-mortem. You want to find out, did it work? You're measuring the success or failure. It is okay, and I want to let you know, it's okay if you fail, because that's one thing that there's some more information that you've received, so you don't have to repeat that. It's okay to have failure, okay? So measuring the success or failure of any campaign by looking at the objectives. Outcome objectives generally call for a change in attitude, in awareness, opinion, behavior, or support, or attitude, okay? Behavior change is considered the ultimate sign of public relation effectiveness. One of the highest levels of public relations impact can be social or cultural change. Now, you're probably saying cultural change. Yeah, because if you're trying to get a church to move in a certain direction, you can see that that is successful when you can actually measure it, that it's happened, okay? Social change is that it could be simply that now there's more acceptance to young people being involved. Now there's more acceptance for having non-Adventists that will be part of a community Pathfinder group, because that's what the objective was, is to create a community or have 10 young people who are not Adventists join this Pathfinder group. So evaluating these elements by achieving the objectives and goal. Did members of each key group or key public interpret your message correctly? Okay. How can you improve or develop better outcomes for future campaigns? What adjustments to the plan, the material, the messages, and activities do you need to make before moving forward? Did you collect information and data that will be used for the research stage of the next campaign? Look, it is imperative that you look at your first campaign as just that first, but that first one will bleed into the second one, into the third one. Now, here's what I mean. Let me, practically speaking, I gave a lot of theory, but let me practically speak, okay? We're talking about the Sabbath school. Let's go back to Sabbath school, okay? Want to grow to Sabbath school, okay? You did all of the research and everything. You found out that the Sabbath school class was too focused on the Sabbath school book. I'll just put it that way, okay? And I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with the Sabbath school book. I'm just saying that this is our problem, okay? Through your research, your surveys of the church members, and you found out that they don't want to study the Sabbath school lesson this quarter, okay? Now you're at a dilemma because you can't go to the pastor and say, Pastor, they don't want to study the Sabbath school lesson, so could we throw it out? No, okay. Obviously, you're the communicator, so now you need to figure out how do we fix this problem. You realize that there are still members that really love the Sabbath school lesson. So obviously, here's a simple way of solving this problem: creating a different Sabbath school class. Now you're like, oh, wait a minute, now you're dividing. But no. There's one group that studies a lesson, and there's another group that studies something else that's approved by the church or whatever the case may be. What you have done is, yes, you have two separate groups, but where you had one group where there was disgruntled people, now you have two groups that are satisfied, hopefully, and now you've doubled how many people are actually at Sabbath school, because now you're starting to change what's happening. Now, the next thing is now you say, okay, well, what's next? Your next campaign can look at the principles and things that happened in the first campaign and say, we have a core group of individuals that we now can lean on to help with the next project. Because each campaign, once you evaluate what happened, sets you up. What did it say the last thing here? Did you collect information and data that will be used for research stage in the next campaign? All right. So what is the next campaign? Don't know, but it's something with the members of the church. So now you're like, okay, how do members of the church feel about certain things? Well, go back to those surveys. Oh, they like this, they like that. They're like, oh, they don't like this. Let's don't do that. And so you as the communicator can go in the board meeting and say, when someone is saying, I think we should do this, say, hey, listen, when I looked at the surveys from the last campaign that we had, people weren't feeling that. Oh, you don't know what you're talking about. Let's pull out the data. You pull out the data, and guess what? When you measure the data, it says the exact same thing. So let's look at this for a second. All right. So what are some of the ways in which you can measure? Now, here's some things that I can tell you that I will let you know. So Spark Turo, what we looked at already, is one way in which you can definitely utilize from the Texas conference. So in other words, you send us the information and we can correspond back and forth with on your next campaign, especially if it's outside of the church. If it's not with church members, it's a lot easier. But we can help you with getting some of those things answered that will help your church, and we can give you some strategies that will assist you in really answering some of the questions that you may have. And I think that's imperative and it's important. Okay, so I'm going to that's Sparktorial. So that's where we are able to assist in that area. The next area is something that you have, because if you have a website, you have this. Okay, so you have Google Analytics, and I'm going to share my screen. I'm going to show you what this looks like. If you're not familiar with Google Analytics, I'm actually showing you Google Analytics from the Texas website. Okay, so this is the Texas Conference website, and I'm going to just show you how you can get data from your own website. Okay, so here we have, as you see, this is just right now, this is for the last 30 days. Users, we had 1,200 users, and events, it's up 20-something%. Now, this is important information. The reason why it's important is because when I dig down into these analytics, I can see how people actually engage on my website, on the conference's website. This is the same for every website. If you have Google Analytics, you have the same access to these things, and they're able to give you a lot of depth of information. But here's what I want to show you right down here, right here. So I can see where people are navigating on my website, but I can also see what user attributes right here, overview. Oh, see, I can see where people are going. I can see with my audience, who's visiting my website. What are some of the people that are visiting my websites? They're using mobile devices. Most of them use mobile devices. But look, there's almost the same that are using desktop. So that means that my website and my connection with people should be perfect. In other words, when I go to the website, it should look nice. It should be up to date. Why? Because people are visiting it, and I can see how they're using it. It should be mobile friendly because people are using mobile devices to do it. Right here, look, mobile web. They're using mobile devices to do it. Look at the resolutions of their screen. Now you're probably saying, well, this is a little too much information. No. This is important because if people are not able to really find what you are offering, then you don't know what they're thinking. And what ends up happening is you end up shooting in the dark. And that's one thing we don't want to do, is shoot in the dark. But look over here, also engagement. So these are all things that you on your website are able to find out. Page screens. Okay, where are people visiting on the conference website? This is the same for you. What are they visiting? You know where they're visiting. So now you know that they're, wow, in just a few days, there were 590 people visiting the virtual training, and then that was the Spanish side, and then on the English side, it's 506 people visited. That means that people are engaging at the landing page. They're connecting. They know where they're going, and that means that this is information that is valuable to you as a communicator, because the more data you have, the better off you are. Now, that also brings us to another thing called Google Trends. Now, Google Trends is a little bit interesting because it just kind of goes into trending what's happening right now, what's happening in your area. You can specify in your city and things like that. So Google Trends, these are all, the only thing on here that cost is Sparktorial, but we have a subscription, so we can actually get you the information if you send us what you're looking for, like keywords and things like that. And then there's your own Google Analytics from your own website, from your own social media pages. And let me type this in here, and I'm going to go to Texas Conferences site, and I'm going to switch here. What this does, it gives you information on your site. In other words, let me share my screen to show you if you don't know. And if you do know, this is just a kind of a reinforcing that if you're doing it now, you're on the right path. Okay, so let me go here and I'm going to show you this. So you go here, over here in Insight. This is what you want to know. Okay, what are people doing on your site? Who's coming? What are people? Male, female, more details. I can see where they're tuning in from. More. There's so much insight on here. The content, your page. So when I go to my page and I see what people are tuning into, the content, how they're engaging with it. You see, for our teacher appreciation, 800 people are engaged in just this one post here. But guess what it gives me right here? It gives me this ability to click, create an ad. I can create an ad just for that will boost it even more. Now, why is that important? Because if you have people in your community that are looking for a great school, this is one way you could do it, because there's already a post that is already getting some really good traction. You can now create some amazing stuff from that. And when if I go back to SparkToro, this site can help you with keywords that you're trying to find out or trying to get. It could be anything. Let me go. I'll even go and give you something. Okay, let's say I'm going to even go something as crazy as second coming of Jesus. All right, so that's really broad. All right. Are people talking about the second coming of Jesus? Well, let's see. We see that they are. Go to the overview. The second coming of Jesus, 2,000 people talk about the second coming of Jesus each month. Let me make sure I refresh this. Yep. So you've got this that's happening. So these things are important. And then what are the relative questions that you can create from this? What are the signs of the second coming of Jesus? What are 7 signs? What are the 10 promises of Jesus in the Bible? What does the Bible say we will do in heaven? These are all things that you can have your pastor do, and he can create these things. But this is all part of the research. So once you find these things out, this will be part of your strategy once you have the research down. And it is important that you have research. Now, let me share with you some resources that can help you. And these are resources that are really good. The Society of Adventist Communicators. As a communicator, you want to be a part of this society. It's a great thing. They meet once a year in October. This year it'll be in Chicago. Then there is the NAD brand guidelines. So this is how does the church logo, how should it be used? Now here's some, the last 3 are obviously non-Adventist societies, but they are some amazing things for tools that we use. I am actually part of this PRSA, Public Relations Society of America, the Dallas chapter, but there's chapters everywhere throughout the state of Texas and the United States. The Institute of Public Relations is more research-based. So if you're interested in more research-based, that is that area. And then the American Marketing Association is the marketing aspect of things. They have a lot of tools about analytics, a lot of tools about AI, and especially a lot of tools about how you can use social media to really catapult your organization and your church to the next level. All right. I want to leave this opportunity for any questions and discussion. So if any of you guys have any questions, and it doesn't necessarily have to be related to just this. If you were in the last session, you can ask any questions. You can either raise your hand, you can put the questions in the question box, and I will answer them. But I really want to know. Hopefully, this was beneficial. I know it was a little bit more theoretical. But I tried to add the practical aspect of things that, the RPI, the research, the planning, the implementation, the evaluation. When you put those things in play, it really helps you with a roadmap of how do you plan your next event? How do you do it in such a way that it can engage more successfully? What are some of the things that would happen with that? So if you have any questions, or you have a comment, or even a problem that may be plaguing you at your church, just stick it in the text, or you can raise your hand and I will unmute you if you want to ask your question. Any questions? Come on, I know I wasn't that good. Any questions? All right, so we have yes, so we appreciate the fact that we're able to support the question, to support the churches. And let me see. And we do have lots of resources. As I mentioned before, I'm going to share with you guys another. Let's see. As I mentioned before in our last session, that we have access to. Let's try this again. We have access to pretty much all of the journalists, and it could be even bloggers, influencers. If you give us that information, in other words, if you're looking for something, you have an event that's coming up and you want the media to be there to cover that event or something like that, send us that information, because what the event may be, and we can send you a list. And I'm going to share really quick again my screen. This is the database that we have. It's coming up now. And as it's coming up, hopefully it will not. Oh, it's taking forever, man. Okay. Here we go. Okay, so let me show you what this looks like. So if you're having an event that's coming up, let's say it's a back to school or some kind of health thing. I'm going to use health since this is medical. So these are medical bloggers. This is editor for Dallas Medical Journal. So these are news individuals. There's their contact information, their beats, what they're responsible for. These things are things in which we can get you this information. So in other words, we can send you a brief book that has their contact information that you could reach out to them, and you can actually say, hey, I would like to have you come to our event. And we can even assist you with a press release of your event if you send us the information, and we can get it out to the journalists. And then we have the capability of doing that. And as I mentioned, anyone in the United States, we can, if they're in this system, and it's thousands of them, we're able to assist in that information, in sharing that information. All right, so let's see. Miss Berry says that she has a team of 6 people at the church who help with communication, but getting consistency across the board for the team is challenging because everyone volunteer. What can you suggest to assist with that? Hey, listen, I know, woo, mercy. When I pastor the church, volunteering is tough. It is tough. But one of the things that I found that works really well, we're living in a different society today. If you feed them, they'll probably come. If you offer food, that's a good suggestion. The other thing is that you may even be able to say, maybe if you can possibly put it in a budget to have some kind of incentive to maybe even go to a workshop or go to like SAC, say if you can put that in the budget to say, I want to take my team here every year or every other year. That's an incentive. One thing I found about communicators within the volunteer space, they love their jobs and they love to be trained and they love new toys. And so if you could provide any of those types of things for them, new training, and we will try our best to offer free training as much as possible, getting individuals to do it. But if, to go someplace with a bunch of communicators and just kind of hobnob off each other is something, I know it costs a little money, but if that's one incentive, food will incentivize them. And then also just showing that you care. And I'm pretty sure you do this, but if you show them that you care about what they're doing, you appreciate them, it's not going to alleviate everything, but I found that those are some of the ways that can really really help with that. And I know it is tough. It is tough. Consistency is tough. The other thing is that probably don't put too much on their plate so that they feel like they're burnt out. That's also a difficult thing. And I hope that helps. And, any other ways in which, there's some training and things like that, like free webinars and things like that you can send them that would be beneficial to their training. Also, maybe if the church offered maybe a one license subscription to like LinkedIn Learning, where you use just your communication email and then everybody can log in and kind of learn some stuff. I mean, those are some of the things that can really help out. It is tough in the volunteer world. It definitely is. I'm not sure if there are any other questions, and I hope that helps. Oh, it does. Thank you. But listen, I want to say thank you for the work that you do in local churches. It is your ability to work as volunteers that allow for our churches to be successful. It is not anything that we do at the conference office. It is literally the work that you do every week that makes the work at the local church successful. We're here to be your cheerleaders. We're here to support you where we can. If there's any opportunity for us to come as a team to your church to assess anything, to come and speak or anything like that, we would love to do that. That's what we're here for. If your AV system is sounding like kapooey, we can arrange for our contracted tech guy to come and give you an evaluation on what's going on with it. All of these things, never fear that you asking us for assistance. If we're able to do it, we'll do it. If we're not able to do it, we'll definitely let you know. But we're here to not only be your cheerleader, but to hold your hand, to help you out where necessary, and to be there when you need us to be there. So without further ado, if there are no other questions, I want to thank you. Oh, wait, I think I see something popping up. Let me make sure I get that. Okay. All right. So here we go. Question comes in from Denton is that, can you make a list of web analytics sites that you had up earlier available on the main conference website? Yes, we can do that. We'll definitely do that. And actually, I think all of you will receive a link to this training. I'm not sure, this is video training, but let me put that up as well. These are some of the analytics. The main one is Google Analytics, and that's your website. Analytics is going to be there. Google Trends, but we will put this information up, and if I'm not mistaken, this training will go up on YouTube, so you can actually go back and look at it. And I think you'll get an email stating when it's actually published. But anything we can do, feel free. Send us an email, communication@txsda.org, and we'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have. Let's have a word of prayer. Father, we thank you for these communicators, the work that they do, the churches that they serve in, Lord, and their teams that they have put together. Lord, we ask that you would bless them. If there's anything we can do at the Texas Conference to assist them, to allow their churches to grow, to support their community, to support their team, Lord, allow us to have the understanding and the wherewithal to assist them in that area. Lord, thank you for all that you do for us. Bless them, bless their families, and we pray this in your name. Amen. Thank you, guys. Appreciate you and all the work that you do. May God bless you. Have a wonderful evening.